This is what a £1,000 portfolio looks like versus a £100,000 portfolio. Now 29% of people have a portfolio of this size or less, but today I wanted to share with you the strategy of investors who have built their portfolios to this size, and one key milestone in between. Because the strategy that builds the first £1,000 will actively sabotage getting to £10,000. These aren't just bigger versions of the same portfolio, they look different, they feel different, and they demand a completely different approach as you scale. So let's start with the £1,000 portfolio. Okay, let's say my name is Alfie and I'm working towards a £1,000 portfolio. I'm new to this investing stuff, but I've heard that you can make lots of money from it. I've opened an investment account after reading about this stock on Reddit, which is up 25% in a month. Now I can only get 2.75% in my instant access Monzo savings account, so 25% a month sounds amazing. I'm excited, I'm a little impatient, and I'll be honest, I really want to 10x my money. But here's the thing, I've made lots of investing mistakes here without even knowing it. And I'm definitely not the only one, because there's some extensive academic research that shows there are strong similarities amongst the general retail investing population. Here is a study from 2009 that looked at the behaviour of over 70,000 retail investors. It was published in the Journal of Finance and it's titled, "Who Gambles in the Stock Market?" Professor Alok Kumar's analysis found that investors with less money are statistically more likely to invest in stocks with lottery-type features, meaning they gravitate towards stocks that have higher volatility and are lower prices. It's the penny stocks, the speculative bets, the next big thing. So if, like Alfie, you've ever found yourself looking at a £5 stock thinking, if I invest £1,000 and this goes to £50, I've made £9,000, then you're not broken, you're just behaving exactly how the research predicts. And also, what you get up to in your personal life also influences this type of behaviour. Because Kumar found that people's attitudes towards gambling are reflected in their stock investment choices and stock returns. Now, I'm not saying just because you stick £5 on a football accumulator of the weekend means that you're more likely to invest in speculative investments, but the research kind of suggests that you probably are. The issue here isn't the tendency to gamble, because it's in all of us. It's actually how much you can control it, given that it could cost you big time. Anyway, how does my investment portfolio look with this type of high-risk speculative approach to investing? Well, I'm investing in a mixture of individual stocks because, after all, I'm looking to 10x my money. I've done a little bit of research and some reading on Reddit, and I found this stock which I like the sound of. But if I'm honest, I don't want to risk it all here, so I've also invested into a couple of big tech stocks because I think they're a much safer bet. Oh, and I also stumbled across this stock. It's highly speculative, but if it all works out, I'll make a fortune. However, in the research it references high idiosyncratic volatility for these types of investments, which is basically just a fancy way of saying your risk is concentrated in a small number of investments which are also highly volatile, rather than spreading that risk across the whole market. Now, because of this volatility, I do check my portfolio multiple times a day, sometimes every hour, to see how my investments are performing. I'm kind of stressed out given that my portfolio can swing massively in value day by day, but I'm still excited that I'm going to make a lot of money from the investments that I've made. But for Alfie, who's chasing wildly impressive returns, the data actually suggests he's set to underperform. Anything between 2 to over 30% of his annual income, depending on gambling intensity, with the mean underperformance being roughly 5%. But I've got the aim to get to a £1,000 portfolio, and so I've kind of realised here that I can't simply afford to give away these types of returns. I will admit this is frustrating though, because I do really want to grow my wealth, and I'm looking for stocks that could potentially grow 100, perhaps even 1,000%. But as the data shows, I'm probably likely to underperform doing it this way, or perhaps even just losing my money altogether. Investors like Alfie usually find out the hard way what it takes to become a successful investor. So to help investors out who are like Alfie, well, here are a few pointers. 1. Before Alfie invests, he should definitely have an emergency fund of at least 3 to 6 months of his monthly expenses. Data shows that nearly 1 in 4 UK employees don't have one, and that should be the beginning point of anybody's financial journey. 2 is to invest in a tax-free stocks and shares ISA account where trading 2-on-2 is a great place to start. It means any capital gains or dividends that are received inside of this account are free from both capital gains and dividend tax. For beginner investors, using the ISA wrapper is not optional. It's an absolute necessity, unless you want to give away a portion of your future gains to HMRC, which I'm sure you probably don't. Trading 212 are commission free with no account fees, and FX fees are just 0.15% where applicable, which is better for you because you get to keep more of your money and invest that money into your portfolio. Now, Trading 212 are currently offering all new customers one free fractional share valued up to £100 when you scan the QR code up here on screen, or open an account by clicking on the link down in the description below. Alternatively, inside the app, if you do use the promo code Mitch and just deposit £1, you'll still qualify for that free fractional share. Third and finally, research from Hendrik Bessenbinder actually shows that the best performing 4% of listed companies explain the net gain for the entire US stock market since 1926. And therefore, investors like Alfie, statistically speaking, are far better off investing in broad market funds as opposed to trying to cherry pick individual stocks. So Alfie took note of this, he remained consistent and disciplined, and his investment portfolio finally started to grow in the right direction. Okay, now let's up this to the £10,000 portfolio and see how this changes the approach. So now I'm James, I've been investing consistently for about 3 years now. I'm really proud of my achievement as this is quite a big milestone for me. Now James is in a group of 43% of adults who have more than £10,000 saved, and in an even more elite group considering 41% of those were holding all of their assets in cash and not investments. I've really been making some positive financial progress. I will admit though, it is still tough to leave my portfolio alone when the market has a wobble, and I still check my portfolio regularly. But bit by bit, I am slowly gaining my confidence. That's because I've been doing my research and I found out about these things called ETFs, and they stand for exchange traded funds. It's a collection of stocks put together into one single investment, which I've heard is a good thing as it keeps me diversified, so I've decided to invest in an S&P 500 ETF. It's historically provided returns of 11.87% between 1992 and 2026, which feels like a pretty sophisticated play to make given that it includes all of the top companies on the planet, including Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft and Amazon. But let me be honest, I'm still very growth focused, so I've added a couple of high conviction plays which I think are going to perform really well. One of them is an AI ETF, and the other is a quantum computing one, because that's the future, right? So I've decided to allocate a third of my portfolio to each. But this is where James, despite being increasingly informed, is also in a really dangerous psychological place that could unravel his whole investing journey so far. And the reason is subtle, because in the moment it appears that he's made some rational investment decisions. But actually those rational decisions become completely irrational once the bull market disappears. Let me explain. At £10,000, losses become material. Just a 10% drop is £1,000. But the truth is, even investments as broad as the S&P 500 have had years where they've dropped 45% just in the past 2 decades alone. And investments as narrow as an artificial intelligence ETF has also dropped by 34% in a year. And that's just in the last 3 years. Due to this, my portfolio could quite easily see unrealized losses of £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, perhaps even more, based on the historical data if the markets were to turn negative. That's a month's salary for most people, and that's why it becomes quite dangerous, because when you see this type of figure disappear from a portfolio, even if it is just temporary, it does something that research says is quite predictable, but is financially disastrous. When seeing red in a portfolio, along with a string of negative news headlines, James thinks the best approach is to sell his positions now and then re-enter the market once it's recovered. But take a look at this chart from JP Morgan. It shows the brutal reality of trying to time the market, where if you miss the best 10 trading days, you cut your returns down by 40%. This behavior is invariably what causes investors to underperform the market. And when you look at this data, between 2002 and 2021, the average investor achieved a rate of return of just 3.6%. versus 9.5% of the S&P 500. For context on what that actually does to a portfolio, investing £250 a month for 30 years, a return of 3.6 versus 9.5% would be the difference of £350,000, which would be financially devastating. And that's before we even begin to address the point around thematic ETFs, which statistically speaking underperform too, despite how much James did his research before investing in them. So what should James do differently? Firstly is to stay away from the news headlines, because it may make James panic and therefore make an investing decision that he later may go on to regret. And instead, James should potentially look to periodically review his portfolio, perhaps quarterly or perhaps even annually. Second is to rebalance aggressive positions in his portfolio. AI and quantum computing may be the future, but allocating a third of your portfolio to each isn't conviction, that's concentration risk. So James caps his aggressive positions at no greater than 5% each of his total portfolio and lets the S&P 500 do the heavy lifting for him. Third, apps like Trading212 have an auto-invest feature, so James should potentially be looking to set up his investments so they're on autopilot, so he can kind of set it and forget it and go about his daily life. James has refined his approach and has definitely become a more well-rounded investor during this period of time, as he sets off on the next milestone, which is a big one. This is the £100,000 portfolio, and it's one of the most important milestones that an investor can achieve. Now let me introduce you to Oliver. I've been investing for about 8 years now. I didn't get lucky by investing in one single stock, and I certainly haven't inherited a load of money. I just did the boring things consistently for long enough, and then eventually the balance on my portfolio crossed the six-figure mark. At this level, I felt the excitement completely disappear, and instead I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility now, given the size of my portfolio. Because here's the thing, a 10% move in either direction now equates to £10,000. That's a huge sum of money. It's 6 months mortgage payments, 2 family holidays, or a decent second-hand car. But it's also something that I've had to become accepting of, even if those losses are just temporarily, given that data between 1986 and 2025 showed the S&P 500 experienced 14 market corrections greater than 10%. And the FTSE 100 experienced 22 of them. Based on this, it's fair to assume that I can see a drawdown in my portfolio every 2 to 3 years on average. And so at this level, the primary objective of my portfolio changes because of a psychological shift that goes on to happen. It's written about in this paper called Prospect Theory, and it's one of the most cited papers in behavioral economics, where it essentially concludes that the feeling of losing money feels twice as bad as it feels gaining the equivalent amount. And so it instills a level of risk aversion that makes me want to protect my investment portfolio just that little bit more. Because as I said, I built my portfolio over 8 years of consistent investing and just hard work in order to be able to put that money into the portfolio. So of course I'm going to want to look to protect it. But whilst I feel like that, you may also be surprised to know how people feel when they receive a £100,000 windfall, because obviously some of us are lucky to inherit big. The National Bureau of Economic Research found that a windfall gain of $100,000 leads to a 5% point decrease in the risk share of household portfolios. That's because a £100,000 portfolio is big enough to mean something, but not too big that you can afford to take a chance with it. And that's exactly where Oliver sits. His primary objective has now changed. He's no longer aggressively seeking out growth, and he's not necessarily looking for the next 10x stock, and instead he's simply looking to protect what he's built. So what exactly does Oliver do differently? Well, the first thing here is diversification. At £10,000, the S&P 500 may make total sense, but at £100,000, Oliver realizes there is actually some uncomfortable data around concentration risk here, given that the top 10 stocks now make up about 40% of the index, making it more concentrated than it's ever been. What's meant to feel like investing in 500 different companies is now largely just a concentrated bet on a handful of tech stocks. But also, Oliver can't predict the future either, which makes all of this a little bit more risky. In 1989, Japan was arguably the strongest and most attractive stock market on earth, until it crashed and took 35 years to recover. In light of this, Oliver has thought about shifting his focus now to an all-world fund, spread across over 3,500 companies across 50 different countries. The US is still the dominant holding, which he thinks is a good thing, but he's now no longer betting on one single market to generate all of his portfolio returns forever. The second thing is to start to rebalance any additional investments that Oliver may have. So once a year, Oliver reviews his portfolio and brings his percentage allocations back in line to where he originally had them. And Oliver does this because he doesn't want to be more exposed than he should be or wants to be when a market crash or correction inevitably occurs. Now, for some of you, these things may ring true, but for others, it might not. Regardless of where you are on your investment journey, you may resonate with one character or all of the characters, or maybe none at all. That's completely normal. It's not to label you. Instead, it's to highlight the tendencies that investors may have, which could potentially result in them losing money, along with some of the other things too that could help them build wealth along the way. But if you want to see the actual steps that me, Mitch, took in order to build a £100,000 trading 2-on-2 portfolio, then I think you'll find this video next interesting. So be sure to click on that now. With that being said, I'll see you over in the next one.